Hello, guys, and welcome back to this new episode. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about why immorality stinks. Yes, you got that right. Immorality stinks. There is a correlation, there is a relationship, a dependence, a rapport between between morality and smells. Particularly, immorality has been proved to be in relation to bad smells, um, to things that stinks, in other words. This correlation has been proved by Professor Corrado Corradi dell'Acqua, who works at the University of Geneva, who has established this type of connection in a way that is pretty substantial. He has connected immorality with the feeling of disgust. And he has done that by inserting sensors, right? By putting sensors on the skin, on the superficial layer of the skin of guinea pigs in a laboratory, right? And the amazing result is this strong corroborated relationship between moral choices and disgust, right? And in particular, not when the choices are so moral, but when the morality of those choices is actually very, very dubious, right? And so, one amazing thing that we have discovered is that our posterior cingulate cortex responds in that way, so responds by, for instance, as we shall see, intensifying bad odors when the morality of a story is very dubious, if present at all. There has been another university, the university in Rome, known as La Sapienza University, where they have actually established this correlation, especially when we get exposed to bad odors, while we also get exposed to stories that are slightly or a bit immoral. So, to simplify what happens, we could say that basically before perceiving the bad odor, I perceive that bad odor as a 7. But once I get exposed to a story that is immoral, then I will start perceiving that bad odor as a 7.5, right? Or as an 8, to simplify. So, very important here is to underscore that there are a couple of results here that we should take into consideration. The first of which is that disgust overcomes, so it's superior to other feelings, for instance, sadness, but it is not superior in intensity, so it's not higher in intensity compared to other feelings, such that of anger, such that of fear, and that of excitement for something positive that might happen, right? Which tells us then that the disgust can emerge only when we have conflicting feelings, for instance, and when the rest of the feelings are most likely more sadness than anger, fear, or excitement. The second consideration that is extremely important has to do with the immune system. Up until this point in my life, right, I have known only one type of immune system. That is what we every day refer to as that system that protects us from diseases. In other words, when we catch a disease, our immune system is able to respond to it by activating, certain cells in our body. There are proper cells to respond to that event that is considered somewhat abnormal in our body, right? And having a good defense, um, having a good immune system guarantees a good defense, rather, right? So guarantees us not to catch diseases or illnesses so easily. But something that has emerged in this research has to do with something that psychologists in particular have termed as behavioral immune system, known as b.i.s. What is b.i.s? b.i.s is, in other words, that series of behaviors that we deploy in our everyday life that has evolutionistic kind of reasons and origins, for which we tend to deploy an avoiding type of behavior in front of things that, for instance, in our particular circumstance, are smelly. Why is that happening? Because we understand that they contain a lot of pathogens, a lot of elements that will lead to diseases, right? And so we don't tend to pick up things that are smelly or that are portrayed culturally as ugly, smelly, and things like that. For instance, if somebody smells, right, we tend to keep it away. If we perceive some type of bad odor, then we tend to go away from that odor, right? And that naturally protects us from getting sick and having diseases naturally. Now, we definitely see how all of this is crucial and extremely important to protect our own organism from agents that are actually dangerous, right? So, the bad smell that we perceive as such might actually be a bad disease, right? So, in order to preserve the species, in order to preserve survival of the individual and the species, evolutionistically speaking, b.i.s makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, right, we could turn this on its head, and we could think or start thinking about this in totally different terms, right? For instance, in a way that is and that involves political rhetoric, right? It is very easy to see how ascribing certain qualities to certain populations or to certain factions of certain segments of that population might end up being extremely dangerous, because it is necessary for us to start seeing somebody. And so, in that sense, there is the labeling of a certain segment, of a certain population of the society, but labeling with a lot of rhetoric might lead us to concepts such as ethnic cleansing, right? And so, when we talk about, or when we have unfortunately in our history talked about ethnic cleansing, right? Then we are talking about eradicating completely one tribe, one part of a population, because it is perceived as different. But instead of recognizing, acknowledging, and admitting difference, we are exchanging, really negotiating that difference, and we are treating that difference as something else, meaning as something that is potentially dangerous, that is potentially fatal to our survival, right? And so, no wonder that there is a correlation between certain sections of the population, like in the past, right? With the Jews, it was the same thing, right? Hitler would describe them as, dirty, right? And so there's this idea of purity, right? That involves that somebody else is dirty and you are pure and you are, superior, right? Same thing has happened, for instance, with other populations, such as homosexual, right? And so here it's extremely dangerous, because one thing is something that actually has a really bad odor, that actually is enriched of pathogens, and so of elements, cells and substances that are dangerous. Another thing is somebody else that is different, somebody else that might also have a bad odor, but that does not contain or does not present a threat to us. And so this has a lot to do with propaganda. This has a lot to do with a certain rhetoric, right, that utilizes words such as purity, as we have seen, such as cleansing, such as any term that would refer to being clean and being deprived of diseases, right? And so this is extremely important, because there is this in terms of language, for sure, there is this connection, this strong link between this kind of rhetoric with the idea that is an unhealthy one to stay away from certain others, right? Now, what is interesting is that in a research that was carried out by Navarrete and Fessler in 2006, right? So 2006, what has been seen, which is amazing, it's just striking, is that this perception, this feeling of heightened sense of cleansing, right, is connected deeply with a form of ethnocentrism. Now, the purpose of the research is not that, but one assumption that we can kind of make, because we have to have other elements, and also because it's not that straightforward, and it's not like a direct correspondence, it's not a direct relationship. But one thing that we can say is that in poor societies, right, in societies where detergents are not as abundant as in ours, so as in our societies are, in those societies, all of this danger to get caught, to catch a disease, right, leads them to a more ethnocentric perspective. And this is absolutely fascinating. It's a terrific discovery, because we can see how poor societies are right-wing somehow, right? And how that has a almost a biological, it is a biological, but a biological, psychological deep root to it. So we were saying, going back to our point, that there is a strict correlation between ethnocentrism on the one hand, and on the other hand, this idea of keeping anything that is, disgusting, anything that is smelly away, right? And we said, basically, starting out with the b.i.s, with the theory of b.i.s, we said that there is a correlation between something that is immoral with the perception, the feeling of disgusting. But now we are going to tighten a little bit that link, because we said that historically, we're going to say actually that historically and anthropologically, this makes a lot of sense. Let's talk for a second about the conquistadores, about those people, those Spanish people who invaded empires, ancient civilizations, such as those of Maya and Aztecs. And if we talk about them, Aztecs and Maya were killed for sure by bullets that were shot and that were imported from Europe. but they were also and mostly killed by the amount of diseases that those conquistadores imported, willy-nilly imported in those territories, right? So if we think in those terms, then it is normal that whoever is perceived as a foreigner, and this is indeed the very origin of ethnocentrism, whoever is perceived as foreigner, then is perceived as that person who is connected with something that is not pure. It is identified as somebody who can import in that society, in that civilization, elements that are pathogens. So they can import diseases and therefore infect all the people. And that is a huge starting point, because it is the starting point of a politics, a propaganda, a rhetoric that is against whoever is conceived as a foreigner, and as such, basically is the idea, the psychological root for nationalism, for a political approach towards immigrants, and more in general, it is the basis for ethnocentrism. So there is a second part of this theory that is particularly interesting for us, right? In 2016, 2017, another study has been carried out, and that has more to do with authoritarianism, right? There were three different stages for this new study, three different stages, three different phases, where basically what we're trying to calculate here is how much the perception or the highly perceptivity to disgusting others specifically can be actually correlated directly with authoritarianism, right? So we were saying three phases. So the first one, right, a pool of people has been chosen randomly and internationally, and of course they weren't directly and immediately exposed to others or to substances, disgusting substances, but they were more, asked about those, right? And basically, in this first part of the study, what happened was that people were asked how perceptive, how disgusted they were considering certain others, right? And so it was asked them to evaluate on a scale probably from 1 to 10 what kind of disgust they felt in thinking about feces or other smelly substances and things like that, right? The second part was more restricted, because in the second part they just picked people from the US, and to those people was asked to correlate in a way that is indirect, naturally, to correlate their disgusting perception with conservatism, and especially here we're talking about political conservatism. And so somebody, just to be clear, can be voting for right-wing parties, or in other words, in the US, for Republicans for different reasons, right? So somebody might vote because they believe wholeheartedly the politics or the policies that right-wing politicians propose and try to have in their own states. Some others might be more Republican for fiscal reasons, right? So what this study shows is that there is an actual correlation between people that are politically speaking on the right, and a highly perceptive
type of approach, if you like, an highly or heightened perception of disgust in reference to really bad odors or really bad substances. And so, again, basically, they were statistically proven to be more on the right when those answers were heightened. Of course, that is done in relation to some sort of average that gets established for every people. They had an heightened perceptivity when it came to, for instance, going to public toilets and things like that, right? So we cannot be completely 100% sure of those answers simply because the study did not actually observe those people, but more asked those people the type of reaction that they would have, right? So somehow the study is not direct and it's not done through direct observation, but more in a different way. Those are questions that get asked to people, but this is what in the end came out. And so the idea is that the more you are disgusted by things that allegedly are disgusting or close to disgusting, the more you are on the right, politically speaking.
Now, we mentioned earlier that this study has actually 3 phases. So the third phase of this was to put in and establish a relation, a correlation between what is not only conservatism but authoritarianism with high perceptivity and heightened sensation feeling of disgust, right? And through administering tests, it has been calculated and it has been proved that in actuality there is this type of correlation, that people that are more subjected to feeling disgusted are not only people that are politically speaking on the right side, so they support and sustain Republicans in the US, but they're also more authoritarian. Now, how has this been proven? Simply because of just answering to tests and to questions such as, would this type of situation justify a violent or somewhat violent action, such as really walking on somebody? And so this correlation is very important. Is very important, but not to be taken in an absolute way. Not to be taken in terms that are absolute, for the simplest reason that we are in a very peculiar time of our history. Therefore, many people believe that more extreme measures must be taken because of the extraordinary circumstances we are in. However, it is important to underline that people that are more subjected to this feeling of disgust are also way more ready to initiate a type of action that can be described as violent, like, as we said, for instance, walking on somebody. Now, of course, we need to have way more evidence to be able to support this as a proper scientific theory, right? Right now, this is a good argument, maybe a very good argument, but no more than that. We do need more tests and we do need more scientific proof before saying that actually b.i.s does exist in the true sense of the term. With that being said, guys, I want you to tell me what you think about this, what you think about this theory, if you believe that this theory might be onto something that is right. So let me know. Comment below and let me know all what you think. With that being said, guys, I thank you for your support. Thank you for your patience, and I am looking forward to talking to you next time with a new episode. So don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, hit the notification bell so that you can receive every new update, and we'll talk some more next time. Bye!